Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Lesotho's Prime Minister is given an exit date of May 22nd as political disruption caused by murder allegations against him caused his coalition to collapse. Thomas Thabane has been under pressure to exit over suspicions that he was involved in the assassination of his former wife. Also, Cape Town becomes a coronavirus hotspot for South Africa. There are fears that the easing of lockdowns may be premature in parts of the country, but the economic toll of the measures has become untenable for many. And schools in Benin reopen their doors. Social distancing measures and masks are still technically a must, but many worry that the precautions will be hard to enforce. But first, murder charges against Lesotho's Prime Minister have divided his party to the point of collapse. Thomas Thabane's coalition fell apart on Monday, and a definite exit date for the leader set for May 22nd. Thabane has been facing calls to resign over allegations that he and his current wife were behind the murder of his late former spouse. Both deny involvement, but the scandal has rocked the country. Jane Flanagan tells us more.
Yes, he's been clinging on to this position now for months. This scandal has been swirling around him for many, many months, and he just has clung on as long as possible. And it seems as though he very much was trying to negotiate an immunity from prosecution. He's been named as a suspect in the murder of his estranged wife. His current wife, Ms. Thabane, has already appeared in court charged with murder and has denied any linked to her predecessor's death. But Mr. Thabane, it seems as though the options really have run out for him. This is a scandal that has been going on for years in Lesotho, and the prospect of this figure, this very powerful figure in Lesotho, even standing trial, seems quite remote. But at the moment now, we seem to be one step closer to that. South Africa's had to mediate to persuade the Prime Minister to make way. King Letsie III had to sign a decree in the end to make sure that all options for the Prime Minister to stay in power were taken off the table. And we see him today as a lame duck Prime Minister for the next 10 or 11 days, at the end of which then we'll have to see what the police are going to do. But the prospect of the Prime Minister now appearing in court with no other options but to face justice seems to be a very strong possibility for him.
Jane Flanagan there for us. Now, at least 2 people have reportedly been killed in Bujumbura, just days ahead of Burundi's 10th general election. Sunday's attack happened at a bar that belongs to a member of the youth wing of the ruling party, called the Imbonerakure. It's listed as a militia by the United Nations. The blast has fueled fears that the May 20th presidential poll could turn violent. The country was plunged into insecurity in 2015 after President Pierre Nkurunziza announced his controversial and eventually successful bid for a third term in office. And at least 3 people have been killed in clashes in eastern Sudan. Fighting between the Bani Amer and the Nuba tribes broke out in Kassala last Thursday. Troops were sent in over the weekend and dozens from both rival communities arrested. The tribal unrest threatens to derail the country's transitional government's efforts to end decades of rebellion in parts of Sudan in the wake of the overthrow of President Omar al-Bashir last April. Well, Cape Town has become South Africa's COVID-19 hotspot. Overall, the country has the highest number of confirmed cases on the continent. On Monday, figures topped 10,600, of which over 5,500 have been found in Western Cape province. Coronavirus restrictions began being eased at the start of the month. There are fears that the concentration of cases in Cape Town could mean a return for stricter measures in the city, even as the government tries to balance public safety measures with the economic devastation being caused by precautions. Our correspondent tells us more.
10 days ago, South Africa began easing lockdown restrictions, albeit in a very limited fashion. Officially, only 1.5 million people have returned to work. Schools remain closed and the country is still under a nighttime curfew. It's clear that 2 things happened under lockdown. Firstly, the economy began bleeding millions of jobs and the infection rate picked up. We've seen transmissions in workplaces, in factories and supermarkets. At the moment, there are roughly 500 new cases a day, but it's accepted that this is not a true picture and that by the end of the month, the figure is likely to be 3,000 new cases a day. President Ramaphosa this morning acknowledged as much when he committed to progressively reopening the economy. He said the virus will continue to afflict South Africa for a year to come and that many, many more people will fall ill. The government will now embark on a mass sanitization campaign of workplaces, and it will increase testing and tracing as the only way to mitigate the inevitable.
MC Ferreira there for us in Cape Town. Now, after several weeks of having been closed as part of the coronavirus fight back, schools in Benin reopened their doors on Monday. Kindergarten and universities are still shut, but all other students have headed back to class. Social distancing measures and masks are still technically a must, but many worry the precautions will be hard to enforce.
Pupils in Benin had been asked to stay at home since March the 30th. Their schools reopened on Monday. Only kindergartens and universities were told to remain closed. In this Cotonou school, everyone will now have to get used to wearing a mask.
Tous les élèves ont eu droit à leur masque ce matin. Les professeurs, les vendeuses, les membres de l'administration, que ce soit les gardiens, les secrétaires, tout le monde. Donc dans les salles de classe, vous n'allez pas voir un seul élève sans masque.
Some school directors did not receive masks. They told journalists the authorities had ordered them to allow even the students who didn't have a mask into the buildings. Some parents came to help on this first day back.
Puis ce matin, 6 heures, on est à pied d'œuvre. On accueille les enfants. On a formé des points d'eau un peu partout, devant les classes, devant les portails, etc.
In recent days, the government has organised COVID-19 tests for teachers. Critics regretted that all the nation's teachers had not undergone the tests before returning to school on Monday. In March, President Patrice Talon said Benin did not have the same means as rich countries to impose a strict lockdown. He added that measures that starve people would inevitably be flouted.
Countries that rely heavily on tourism are struggling to pull through the effects of the pandemic. In Senegal, the industry accounts for about 10% of GDP. But with borders closed and flights from Europe cancelled, peak holiday season is proving to be anything but this year. Our correspondent sent us this report from the seaside resort of Saly.
Saly, Senegal's most popular beach resort, attracts thousands of European tourists every year. Today, it's a ghost town. Since coronavirus emerged in the country 2 months ago, the 10,000 residents that live here have been staying home.
Alors là, on ne reconnaît pas du tout Saly, c'est une certitude parce que là, c'est tristounet, quoi. Il n'y a plus de vie comme il y a habituellement, quoi.
Ça me rend triste. Si je me promène vers la plage, là, franchement, ça me rend triste parce que Saly était tout le temps animé. Et voilà, là, tu vois personne et ça fait triste, quoi.
The town's 20 hotel resorts are all closed to the public. Boubacar Sabali is the general manager of this hotel that's usually at full capacity with French and German tourists. Today, the 114 rooms are all empty, a difficult situation for the local businessman.
Ces chambres sont restées vides depuis le 15 mars. On ne sait pas jusqu'à quand. Pour l'instant, c'est... Voilà.
The gardeners and security guards have continued to watch over the property, but all other staff members have been asked to stay home.
Là, il n'y a pas d'activité du tout. On est en chômage tout court. En chômage tout court, mais il faut les payer. Et donc, là, nous sommes obligés de supporter ces charges supplémentaires et on ne sait pas où ça va nous mener.
Other businesses that thrive from the tourism industry are in the same situation. Restaurants have had to close since the evening curfew means the seaside resort's nightlife is non-existent. At the artisanal market, most souvenir stands rarely even open. Khadim is one of the few vendors that hasn't given up. He's hoping for a government stimulus package to help suffering businesses.
On vit avec les petites économies qu'on avait, ouais, avec un peu l'aide aussi de la famille. Ouais, parce que nous, tu sais qu'au Sénégal, en Afrique, on vit un peu en communauté, quoi. Donc, sans l'aide de l'État, on est presque cuit, hein.
Around 15 billion CFA francs, the equivalent of 22 million euros, has already been pledged by the state of Senegal to help the hospitality industry dealing with the economic fallout of COVID-19.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.